In games, we can do anything. Well, almost. There are some things that, well, let's just say will remain on the horizon for most gamers. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things most gamers can't do. Starting off at number 10, it's completing a raid, which is basically a boss fight meant to be done with a full team or even multiple teams of people in an MMO solo. Raid bosses in MMOs usually are meant to be the ultimate challenge in these games. Usually they're designed to be taken on by a large group of players working together to take them on, and even with huge numbers, actually winning can be an enormous challenge. But some truly elite players just aren't satisfied with taking out one of these massive bosses with a team. They want all the glory, so they attempt to take them down themselves. Usually this is really only possible because many MMOs are constantly increasing the levels a player can earn and the quality of weapons and armor they equip, so older content that was once nearly impossible can become possible to deal with. In some cases, certain raid bosses can be pretty easily dealt with by yourself if the power gap is wide enough. But something almost nobody can do is take on a raid boss at nearly their level all by themselves. Some have pulled it off, like this guy who managed to solo Atheon, the boss of the Vault of Glass from Destiny 2, by themselves. What makes this especially impressive is how the boss is literally meant to be impossible to beat solo. Like a few of the raid bosses in Destiny 2, part of this guy's fight involves splitting up the raid team into two separate rooms. The only way they managed to beat them was by exploiting a glitch, and that is just a small part of the challenge. To make a long story short, it is absolutely amazing anyone has managed to beat this guy solo. Destiny 2 isn't the only game to see people solo their raid bosses, obviously. In World of Warcraft, someone managed to take on Gul'dan, normally a dude you're supposed to fight with 10 players, by themselves, and managed to do it without using any exploits. This sort of thing is seen as a badge of honor for certain diehard players of games with raid bosses in them, but it's definitely not something most players are able to pull off. At number 9, playing Dark Souls with a fishing pole or any other weird controllers. One of the more amusing trends we've seen in streaming is people playing games with controllers that are awkward, cumbersome, or just plain hard to use. There's a lot of examples out there, and anyone who manages to beat a game using basically anything outside of a normal-ass controller deserves at least a little kudos, but one of the funniest examples was when Twitch streamer A Twerking Yoshi managed to beat at least part of Dark Souls 3 using a fishing pole. Well, I'm specifically talking about the peripheral used for Bass Pro Shop's The Strike, a game from 2009. Like, this guy has a whole channel dedicated to playing games with weird controllers, like using the Donkey Kong bongos to play Fall Guys, or probably one of the strangest things ever, playing Dark Souls with a bunch of bananas. Now, one of the biggest things preventing people from doing stuff like this is most of these games are not built to work with alternate peripherals at all. So on top of the amazing feat of actually playing some of these games with these weird ass controllers, the guy also has to mod the games just to get them to work. That is dedication, if nothing else. But actually finishing something with one of these things, that's something most gamers do not have the patience to pull off. And number 8 is playing video games blindfolded. For most people, beating a hard game is rewarding enough. They beat the game, turn the game off, and that's it. Maybe they play it again, but yeah, that's basically the experience. But for the few people who really crave a challenge, just beating the game is only the first step. There's a whole horizon of self-imposed challenges that can go for out there, but that usually ends with stuff like speed runs or no-hit runs or stuff like that. It's only a truly crazy few that attempt this, and what I'm talking about is beating a game blindfolded, as in you literally can't see anything. The only way someone could manage it is through pure memorization and muscle memory, and even then it's got to be an insanely difficult challenge. Pretty much the only games anyone could possibly manage playing blindfolded are ones that are mechanically simple and at least partially scripted. It's the reason someone managing to beat something like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out blindfolded at least makes some kind of sense. It's still really difficult, like most people, including myself, can't beat the game normally, but you really only have a few different actions to do, and the fights follow a general pattern. Thing is, gamers always find a way to top themselves. Just last year, we got news that a speedrunner, Mitriz, managed to beat Sekiro Shadows Die Twice blindfolded. You know, that infamously hard game that's like a full game and not a simple arcade game like Punch-Out? It sounds crazy, but there are a few reasons why it was possible at all. The main one was that they went for the shooter ending instead of any other ones. It cuts almost half the game, and generally makes it a lot faster to get through, but still, even more amazing is the fact that it apparently only took them about 100 hours of practice to pull off a complete blindfolded playthrough. I guess having thousands of hours already logged speedrunning Sekiro can help with muscle memory. That's probably the case. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what game it is. Managing to do anything other than immediately dying playing a game blindfolded is an amazing achievement. And number 7 is Infecting Madagascar in Pandemic 2. Like, it's so difficult, it's kind of a meme at this point. So, most of the stuff we've mentioned so far is way beyond the abilities of most normal gamers. It's stuff that only a handful of people have even managed, but this point is just a little more relatable. If you know what we're talking about, you're probably already nodding your head, but if you don't, we're kind of talking about a funny quirk in the game Pandemic and Pandemic 2, which are flash games where you try to play as a disease to infect the whole world. After a little practice, getting total global saturation isn't too hard, except for whatever reason, Madagascar always seems to be impossible to infect. What makes Madagascar so uniquely difficult to infect has to do with how isolated it is. It's got a single port and they close it as soon as someone so much as coughs in this game. It's hardly the only country in the game that can be difficult to infect, but this is the most consistent one. Of course, it's honestly not that hard to do in comparison to playing stuff like blindfolded or soloing bosses you're meant to fight with dozens of people. It's a more down-to-earth kind of challenge, and it's something that a lot more people have actually done. But it's also something that a lot more people have probably tried to do and failed. So yeah, it's not quite as impressive as some of the previous examples, but the meme has become so powerful that there's something very satisfying about pulling it off, regardless of how difficult it actually is. And number 6 is beating nuts.wad, an infamously impossible Doom mod on ultra violence. If you've ever bothered to screw around with .wads, which as Wikipedia describes them are packages containing new levels or graphics, you're probably aware of nuts. Created by BPRD, shout out to Hellboy in 2001, this map is a total joke. It is a gigantic arena with over 10,000 monsters in it, and because of the sheer volume of enemies, it's basically unplayable in regular old Doom, because it turns the game into a slideshow. Also, it's basically impossible, and you can probably see why, right? I mean, just look at this mess. This is like the first time anybody attempts to make a map in Doom. I did it when I was a kid. Basically, anybody who likes to screw around with mapping tools has probably made at least one nuts in their lifetime, but for whatever reason, this is the one that stuck around and became famous, or rather infamous, in the community. That's why actually managing to finish it is something someone would, even bother to do, rather than just ignore it as just some other half-assed joke map. Of course, another reason is that BPRD is one of the most respected designers and is still very active in the Doom modding community, so that's another part of it. Time to come clean here, though. Because of infighting, it's actually not that difficult of a map to beat if you're willing to wait while all the demons fight each other. The real difficulty on this map comes from getting 100% kills in it, which for the longest time people thought was not possible. Like literally completely impossible. Most people thought it couldn't be done because if they do start infighting, you don't get it. And they were partially right. It may not be possible to pull off by humans, but it can be done tool assisted. YouTuber Zero Master is the first confirmed guy to actually for real beat this map with 100% kills on ultra violence difficulty, but they were only able to do it by programming an exact set of actions for the Doom guy to follow. The tool assisted part of tool assisted speedrun. And considering it took over 20 years for someone to finally manage to 100% this map, even if they didn't do it legit, it's still pretty damn impressive. Of course, you can also turn on God mode and clean house if you want, but that's not nearly as impressive. And number 5 is finishing Takishi's challenge without a guide, back in 1986. One of the strangest video games of all time came out on the Famicom in Japan, Takishi's Challenge, made by Taito under the direction of Beat Takishi, the Japanese crime movie guy, the guy in Yakuza 6. Also, Takishi's Castle, if you remember, is that show that used to air all the time on Spike. This was a game that they actually sold for real money that was a total troll. The game does just about everything it can to be an annoying experience. Like, the music is very obnoxious. Basically everything and everyone is trying to get you, and almost everything you do leads to failure. It's a game where you can choose to punch a guy on the name select screen and get a game over before the game actually starts. Like, who would think that there was some kind of actual game here even? It doesn't seem like you can actually do anything, And for most players, that's where they're gonna stop. They'll play for a few minutes, die pointlessly and randomly, and then give up. But there is a game here, and you can finish it. And good luck actually doing it without a guide. That's the thing. Once you actually know what to do, it's basically possible, but if you don't, forget it. It's not happening. There's so many options, the game expects you to do so many things, they're about as counterintuitive as it gets if you want to finish it. And of course, if you fail at any point, which you definitely will, then it's back to the start. To actually progress in the game, you have to get drunk, lose your job, get a divorce, and those are just the first steps, and it gets more ridiculous from there. What's even more ridiculous is that there was a guide you could get at the time, but it didn't even list all the steps required to beat the game. Not even the guide could have actually fully helped you. Yep, these days pretty much anybody can get through the game if they really want to, but only with a guide. Without one, it's really actually genuinely impossible. At number 4 is getting everything in GTA Online. So far, mostly what we've been talking about are things most gamers can't do because of the high skill ceiling required. Like most people just don't have the time or patience to bother with it, but for this one, we're pretty much talking about money. GTA Online's been around for a while now, almost 8 years at this point, and they just keep adding more and more stuff for you to buy. There's apartments, garages, bunkers, facilities, business properties, airplane hangars, video game arcades, clubhouses, warehouses, nightclubs, and offices. That's just buildings you can buy. There's also hundreds of different outfits, vehicles, guns, and upgrades you can get as well, and all of it can be bought with real-world money. That is a ton of stuff, and the costs add up fast, which led us to wonder, how much would it actually cost to own everything in GTA Online? At least according to this guy on StackExchange.com, it is a lot. This is a comment from about a year ago, so it's probably outdated, keep that in mind. But the total cost of everything in GTA Online is about $703,307,823 GTA dollars. According to their math, that equals about 88 Megalodon shark cards, or about $8,712 United States money, real money, cash money. Of course, you wouldn't actually have to pay that much to get everything in the game. There's lots of ways to make GTA bucks in GTA Online, but it's an easy way to estimate the value of everything, and that is a lot. I'm sure there are a decent amount of people who actually do have everything too. GTA Online is hugely popular, and there's more than enough people to play it religiously that I'd easily believe there are people who have bought everything there is to buy. But in contrast, I'm sure quite a few people who have played this game haven't even scratched the surface of all the stuff you can get. Not just because everything is expensive either, but because it's a huge time investment. If you want everything in GTA Online, you have to make some kind of sacrifice, time or money, and it's only people who really love the game that are willing to make it. At number 3 is opening the impossible chest in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Another way that people chose to explore their favorite games is by busting them open, pulling off tricks, finding glitches and exploits, or just trying to fall through walls, stuff like that. They get their fun by peeking behind the curtain and seeing what's going on in their favorite games. Some of this stuff can be really difficult to pull off, and sometimes takes years for players to figure out, all just because there's a community out there that wants to see what's possible. One way players do this is by finding impossible items, stuff that gets left in the game but is inaccessible to the player in normal gameplay, stuff like the impossible coins from Mario 64, or most recently, the many hard to get chests dotted around Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. Now, just to be clear, none of these chests were actually designed to be found. For whatever reason, they just still exist somewhere, usually underground or in some other totally inexplicable place. And one by one, people have figured out ways to collect them. Just a few months ago, a player named Cleric actually managed to get the last one. If you're curious about any of this kind of stuff, you should check out his video on the topic, because getting this thing was not easy. It was just a non-stop series of seemingly impossible actions, and it's pretty fascinating to see how they pulled it off. Most players, if they see a coin when the camera clips through a wall or a chest that seemingly sinks into the ground when they see it, they just chalk it up to a glitch and move on. But some people are the ultimate completionists. If something can be collected in a game, they're gonna get it. At number 2 is beat the world record speedrun in Super Mario Bros., or even get close to it. At this point, speedruns of the game are so optimized that it's reached the point where it's practically humanly impossible to go faster. Speedrunning is huge these days, there's no doubt about that, but as players get better and better at speedrunning games, the chances of someone managing to break the record get smaller and smaller. For a game as old and beloved as Super Mario Bros., the bar to entry is pretty massive too. The world of speedrunning is already in a class of its own, at least when it comes to skill level, but for people people trying to get the world record in Super Mario Bros., it's absolutely insane. What makes the game so unusual is just how optimized it is. Pretty much every trick people know about has been used, so all that's left is perfect execution. And for this one, we're specifically talking about regular old speedruns, not tool-assisted ones. Like, tool-assisted speedruns can pull off tricks that a normal person obviously can't, like inputting 2 commands at once, or pressing buttons faster than a person can physically. The YouTuber Summoning Salt has an awesome in-depth video on the whole thing, titled The Human Limit, literally because the people speedrunning the game are pushing at, and sometimes exceeding what is thought to be humanly possible with the speedruns of this game. So yeah, mastering a game so thoroughly you can nearly rival a literally perfect machine playthrough of a game is probably not something most players can do. And finally at number 1, finishing the last Dance Dance Revolution song, Endymion at level 19. When it comes to rhythm games, there's not much out there that's quite as impressive as a high-level DDR play. It's just on another level. The amount of physical coordination and timing that's required to pull off some of the sequences the game throws at you is just next level. In practice, it's maybe not as impressive as some of the other amazing gamer feats we've mentioned on this list so far, but it does look really impressive. Maybe the hardest song on the entire run is, like I said, Endymion at level 19, which was introduced to the game on July 13th, 2017. It is incredibly hard and the patterns come at you so fast that it feels like a joke. Like, that's just impossible, right? Nobody's actually supposed to pull that off, right? But apparently some have. I don't understand how, but they have. Again, this is a more obtainable goal. It's not something literally no one person can do. Conceivably, anybody who is skilled enough at this game can pull it off, but it certainly isn't us. We wouldn't be able to pull this off if it was just asking us to press buttons on a controller, let alone actually using a dance pad. What's even more ridiculous about this song is that DDR rates its difficulty 1 through 20. That means this song, considered by a lot of people to be one of the absolute hardest, only rates a 19. So what does a number 20 look like? This guy on YouTube named Mike Jones sums it up best. Level 20, only someone with bionic legs could be able to do it. And it's probably not too far off. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.